Your parents purchased their first home for $92,000 in 1993. Fast forward to today, and that exact same property is listed at $465,000. Your income? Maybe double what they were earning if you're fortunate. The equation is fundamentally flawed. What might surprise you is that every conventional piece of financial guidance you've received was designed for an economic landscape that vanished decades ago. Put away 10% of your earnings. Cut out those expensive lattes. Create a detailed spreadsheet. These are distractions. No amount of careful budgeting will solve a systemic economic failure. The playing field has been completely restructured, and if you're still following strategies from the 90s here in 2026, financial failure is inevitable. I'm the AI finance expert, and in this video, I'm exposing why attempting to maintain a traditional middle-class existence will destroy your finances. And critically, what alternative path you need to pursue. Let's begin with real estate. The median house price across the United States currently sits at approximately $420,000. In metropolitan areas where actual employment opportunities exist, cities like Phoenix, Portland, Charlotte, that figure represents your starting point for a basic family home, not your forever home, your entry-level property. 4 bedrooms if you're fortunate, maybe a small yard, in a district where the public schools won't have metal detectors by middle school. Here's the critical data point. Recent research shows that middle-class wage earners can currently afford only 23% of properties on the market. Prior to 2020, that percentage was 48%. Let that sink in. Nearly half of available homes were within reach. Today, it's barely 1/4. Interest rates skyrocketed from roughly 2.8% in early 2021 to peaks above 7.5% throughout 2023. While they've retreated marginally, economic forecasters agree we won't see rates below 6.2% during 2026. Your monthly obligation on that $420,000 property? Approximately $3,200. That represents over $1,100 more per month compared to what the identical house would have cost just 48 months ago. But the mathematics get even more absurd. To responsibly manage that $3,200 monthly expense, adhering to the traditional guideline that housing should consume no more than 28% of gross earnings, you'd need an annual income of $137,000. The median household earnings in the United States? $78,000. Calculate that discrepancy. The average American household cannot financially support the average American dwelling. The gap isn't even close. So what's happening when families confront this reality? They overextend. They rationalize that allocating 48%, sometimes 52% of their gross income toward housing is a short-term sacrifice. They convince themselves refinancing will happen when rates decline. They assume the upcoming salary increase will create breathing room. They transform into financial captives. When more than half your earnings evaporate into a mortgage before you've purchased groceries, you're not accumulating wealth. You're barely surviving. You're a single, unexpected layoff. One emergency room visit. One major appliance failure away from receiving foreclosure documentation. The housing crisis is devastating. But let's examine automobiles, because this is where individuals obliterate their financial futures without conscious awareness. The average vehicle financing payment in 2026 exceeds $740 monthly. Full-size trucks and SUVs? We're discussing $150 to $1,275 in monthly obligations. Run the calculations on an 84-month financing agreement at current rates. You'll pay between $96,000 and $145,000 across the loan's lifespan for a depreciating asset that will be valued at roughly $12,000 when you finally achieve ownership. But this is standard practice, correct? Everyone finances their vehicles. It's the accepted norm. Here's the fundamental truth you must internalize. The accepted norm is financially catastrophic. You're borrowing money at 6.5, 8.5% interest to purchase something that loses value every single day. Each payment contributes toward an asset worth less than it was 30 days prior. And here's the behavioral pattern that destroys people. Incremental lifestyle inflation. You begin with a practical Accord or Camry. Then a promotion arrives, and suddenly that reliable sedan feels inadequate. So you exchange the Accord, on which you still owe $8,000, and incorporate that negative equity into fresh financing for the crossover. Now you're financially underwater immediately, owing $38,000 on a vehicle the market values at $31,000 the instant you complete the paperwork. Here's the lifetime cost of this pattern. If you're making $740 monthly vehicle payments from age 26 to 67, that totals $364,000 in automobile payments alone. If instead you purchased dependable pre-owned vehicles with cash every 6 years and invested that $740 monthly at 8% average returns, you'd accumulate over $2.8 million by retirement. You exchange nearly a third of your retirement security for temporary vehicles. At this point, you might be thinking, but if I simply earn more income, these problems disappear, right? Incorrect. And this represents the most dangerous trap in the entire system. Recent data from economic policy researchers indicates that single adults require approximately $105,000 annually just to achieve basic comfort in 2026. For a household with 2 children, that requirement jumps to $248,000. 3 children? You're looking at $295,000. These figures don't represent luxury consumption. This covers housing, food, childcare, medical insurance, and perhaps one modest vacation annually. What previous generations considered middle-class living now demands income levels that would have been categorized as affluent just 15 years ago. But here's what the financial industry won't acknowledge. Increased earnings don't solve anything if you're still following the broken conventional playbook. What percentage of households earning $110,000 to $160,000 are living without savings to paycheck? Approximately 43%. These aren't individuals struggling on minimum wage. These are software developers, registered nurses, operations managers, professionals who followed every prescribed step, and they're still financially struggling. The mechanism? Every time income increases, the system extracts proportionally more. You receive a $22,000 salary increase, and immediately you qualify for a larger mortgage. Your lender enthusiastically informs you that you're now approved for $580,000 instead of $425,000. The raise vanishes before you register its existence. Your lifestyle expanded to match your income, and you're back to feeling financially strained, just surrounded by more expensive possessions. So what's the actual solution? How do you build genuine wealth when the traditional foundation has completely disintegrated? You begin with a truth nobody wants to acknowledge. Reaching your first $100,000 in accumulated savings will consume an enormous amount of time and feel psychologically brutal. If you invest $550 monthly at 8% average returns, it requires 10 years and 3 months. That's essentially a lost decade. Throughout this entire period, you're performing all the work. Compound interest isn't helping you yet. It's barely acknowledging your existence. You're forcing a massive boulder up a steep incline in complete darkness. And every time you check your progress, the destination appears more distant. In year 1, you contribute $6,600, and market returns give you approximately $330. In year 2, you contribute another $6,600 and receive maybe $980 in returns. The mathematical progression is so gradual it appears broken. Your social circle is purchasing property, celebrating weddings, posting photos from Mediterranean vacations. Meanwhile, you're living like a graduate student, monitoring a spreadsheet number that increases slower than continental drift. This is precisely why most people abandon the process. They cannot endure the grinding phase. They persist for 18 months, perhaps 30, then conclude, this is pointless. But here's what happens if you persist through the difficulty. That boulder eventually reaches the hilltop, and gravitational forces reverse. The first $100,000 requires 10 years of relentless discipline. The second $100,000? Approximately 5 years. The third? Roughly 4 years. By the time you reach $500,000, you're adding $100,000 every 24 months, without increasing your monthly contributions. But surviving the grinding phase is non-negotiable. There's a specific financial milestone that transforms everything, and it arrives substantially before that $100,000 target. It's $20,000. This is the precise amount where you shift from survival mode into growth mode. Until you possess $20,000 in accessible savings, not invested in markets, not locked in retirement accounts, but immediately available cash, every unexpected expense becomes a financial emergency. Your vehicle requires a replacement engine? $4,200. Emergency. Your child fractures a bone, and you face your insurance deductible? $5,500. Emergency. The water heater fails during winter? $6,800. Emergency. Your employer announces workforce reductions? Catastrophic emergency. Every single decision is driven by fear, because you lack any financial cushion. You accept the job you despise because you cannot risk 14 days without income. You avoid salary negotiations because what if they withdraw the offer? You remain in the damaging relationship because you cannot manage split housing costs. You don't launch the business because you need every hour of guaranteed wages. Once you surpass $20,000, something fundamental changes. That same engine replacement is frustrating? Absolutely. But it's not a catastrophe. You can address it without credit cards, without predatory loans, without the humiliation of asking relatives for money. You can accept calculated risks on the position that pays less initially but offers superior long-term potential. You can negotiate from a position of strength because desperation isn't driving you. You can terminate the relationship with the abusive client. You can launch the business and commit 6 months to testing viability. This psychological transformation matters more than any investment return, more than any additional income stream, more than any promotion, because it fundamentally alters your decision-making framework. Financial professionals discuss risk tolerance as if it's an inherent personality characteristic. That's completely wrong. Risk tolerance is a mathematical function of your available capital. Having $20,000 in savings doesn't alter your fundamental personality. It changes which risks you can afford to take. And taking intelligent risks is the actual mechanism for wealth creation. So how do you reach that point? What's the actual strategic playbook? First, we must address the sequence of operations, because this is where people consistently sabotage their progress. They begin investing before they've stopped the financial bleeding. If you're carrying credit card debt at 21.5% interest while simultaneously depositing money into index funds hoping for 8% returns, you are mathematically losing 13.5% annually. You're attempting to fill a container that has a leak in the bottom. Every dollar you allocate toward that credit card debt represents a guaranteed 21.5% return. Show me any investment that reliably beats that performance. You can't. Even legendary investors like Warren Buffett average approximately 19.8% across their entire careers. And they're Warren Buffett. You aren't. Eliminate the high-interest debt first. This isn't exciting advice. It doesn't involve cryptocurrency speculation or real estate flipping or options trading, but it's a guaranteed return that outperforms virtually every investment strategy available. The single, and I mean singular, exception is your employer's retirement contribution matching program. If your company matches up to 5% of your compensation, you contribute exactly 5%. That represents a 100% immediate return. It's literally free money. Accept it. But everything exceeding that match, every additional dollar you can accumulate, goes directly toward debt elimination until it's completely gone. Zero exceptions, zero rationalizations. Here's what's actually occurring beneath the surface when you eliminate that debt. You're repurchasing your future income. That credit card was extracting $215 monthly in interest charges. Once it's eliminated, that $215 flows into investments instead. You reverse the equation. Now that capital is working for your benefit instead of against it. This is the wealth-building mechanism nobody discusses. It's not primarily about earning more, although that certainly helps. It's about stopping the outflow first, closing the leaks. Most people are attempting to fill a bathtub with the drain wide open, confused about why the water level never rises. Now, you might be thinking, this seems impossible. How can I possibly save $550 monthly when my current expenses already exceed my income? The answer is uncomfortable. You must stop pretending you can afford your current lifestyle. This requires accepting a truth that most people refuse to confront. Your current lifestyle is not financially sustainable. Not because you lack discipline or financial intelligence, but because the underlying mathematics are fundamentally broken. That apartment or house you're renting or financing, it consumes 42% of your income instead of the recommended 27-30%. The vehicle in your garage costs more monthly than what your parents paid for their entire first mortgage. Your grocery expenses have increased 110% since 2020. You're not living extravagantly. You're living what society defines as normally. And normal has become financially impossible for most Americans. Let's discuss what reducing expenses actually means in practice. Real structural modifications that generate meaningful impact. Can you bring in a roommate? I understand you're 37 and that feels like regression. You imagined you'd be past this stage. Do it regardless. Splitting housing costs saves you $650 to $1,350 monthly, depending on your location. That's $7,800 to $16,200 annually. Across 5 years, that's $39,000 to $81,000 in capital you didn't spend on housing. Do you understand what $78,000 invested at 8% becomes over 20 years? $363,000. You traded temporary ego for over $250,000. What about your vehicle? That $52,000 pickup with the $1,150 monthly payment? A 4-year-old Toyota Corolla that you purchase with cash for $13,500 will transport you to employment just as effectively. The difference is $38,500 in immediate savings, plus 6 years of compound growth on the capital you didn't spend. This isn't deprivation. This is fundamental mathematics. The Corolla gets you to work. The truck gets you to work. The functional outcome is identical. The financial outcome is dramatically different. But here's where the psychological difficulty emerges. And this element determines success or failure for most people. Your colleagues will judge you. Your relatives might make subtle comments. You'll feel like you're regressing while everyone around you appears to progress. Let them maintain that perception. They're drowning in financing payments and refuse to admit it. You're constructing an empire quietly. This is the element nobody warns you about. The emotional cost of making intelligent financial decisions in a culture that measures achievement by your vehicle and your address. You'll attend dinners where friends discuss their recent home purchase and their kitchen remodeling plans. Meanwhile, you're sharing housing with a roommate and operating a vehicle from 2019. It will feel like failure. It's not. They're consuming their future. You're purchasing yours back. Once you've stopped the financial bleeding and constructed that initial buffer, the compound interest mechanism begins functioning. But you need to understand the realistic timeline. That first $100,000 at $550 monthly requires 10 years and 3 months. That's a lost decade. Throughout that entire decade, you're declining wedding invitations because you cannot afford airfare. You're refusing weekend trips. You're observing your peers enjoy their 20s or 30s while you're grinding through the process. And here's the most discouraging part. Progress appears invisible. When you eliminate debt, your net worth increases, but your lifestyle remains unchanged. There's no new vehicle to display. No vacation photographs. Just a spreadsheet number that decreases slower than you'd prefer. This is precisely why most people quit. They cannot perceive the mechanism functioning. But here's the reality. That first $100,000 is constructing the foundation for everything that follows. Once you reach 6 figures, the mathematics transform completely. At $100,000 invested at 8%, you're generating $8,000 annually in returns. That's $667 monthly that you didn't contribute. The capital is finally working for your benefit. At $200,000, you're generating $16,000 annually passively. At $300,000, you're generating $24,000. By the time you reach $500,000, the account is growing by $40,000 annually, even if you never contribute another dollar. That's median American salary and passive growth. This is what financial experts mean by making your money work for you. But surviving the grinding phase to reach that point is mandatory. Let's zoom out and examine why this is occurring. Because understanding the structural problem helps maintain perspective during the difficult years. Home prices have increased approximately 385% since 1991. Median income increased 175%. You cannot budget your way across that gap. When your parents were your age, they could work a decent position, save diligently for several years, and afford a home. The home cost 3.2 times their annual income. Their mortgage payment was 27% of their gross income. Today, that home costs 8.3 times your annual income in most markets where employment exists. Your mortgage payment represents 52% of your gross income, if you can even qualify for financing. And everyone's attempting to sell you identical advice, as if nothing has changed. Just save more. Just work harder. Just be more disciplined. The economy of 2026 is not designed to facilitate your success. It's designed to extract maximum profit from your anxiety about falling behind. But they cannot take from you the capacity to refuse. This is ultimately a mental challenge, not a financial challenge. The mathematics are straightforward. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Allow compound interest to function. The difficult part is psychological. It's appearing unsuccessful for a decade while you construct something substantial. It's driving past the affluent neighborhoods in your paid-off Toyota, knowing you're accumulating wealth while they're accumulating payments. It's attending family gatherings without the new timepiece, the new vehicle, the status symbols that signal you've succeeded. It's enduring the subtle judgment, the comments, the questions about when you're purchasing a house, upgrading your car, taking a proper vacation. Success in 2026 isn't a large house or a luxury vehicle. Success is having exit capital. It's the capacity to refuse the job that's destroying your health. It's not being trapped by impressive salaries or mortgage obligations. It's waking up knowing that if everything collapsed today, if you lost your position, if your industry disappeared, you'd be financially stable for 6 months, for a year, perhaps longer. That's wealth. Everything else is just expensive decoration. The mistake people make is treating that first $20,000 as insignificant. But it shifts you from survival mode to growth mode. Before $20,000, you're making fear-based decisions. After $20,000, different questions become possible. That's what financial professionals mean when they discuss risk tolerance. It's not about your personality. It's about your bank account. The system is designed to keep you running. More income triggers more expenses. The promotion comes with new expectations. The raise gets absorbed by lifestyle inflation before you notice. You're on a treadmill that accelerates every time you think you're catching up. The only exit is to stop playing their game and start playing yours. You can follow the masses into financial stress, or you can do the mathematics. Make the difficult choices and actually construct something. The choice has always been yours. Most people just never realize they're choosing. The uncomfortable truth is that most people will ignore everything I just said. They'll watch this video, agree intellectually, maybe even feel motivated for approximately 48 hours, and then they'll finance a truck they can't afford because their neighbor just purchased one. It won't work out. But here's what they cannot take from you: the discipline to appear unsuccessful for a decade while you build something substantial. The courage to drive past the affluent neighborhoods in your paid-off sedan, knowing you're stacking capital while they're stacking payments. That's your weapon. Use it.